Xander Ellis hadn't planned on getting out of the car, let alone falling in love, when his driver pulled over near the Montclair farmer's market because of a detour. "I'll just stretch my legs for 5 minutes," Xander muttered, brushing off his assistant's voice echoing in his earbud. He tugged off his sunglasses, stepped onto the sun-warmed pavement, and shoved his hands into the pockets of his tailored slacks. All around him, the smell of fresh bread, sunflowers, and roasted almonds filled the air. He didn't blend in. Not in his expensive loafers, black shirt rolled at the sleeves, or the subtle glint of the platinum watch on his wrist. But no one seemed to care. People were laughing, bartering, sampling cheese under striped tents. It was normal, grounded, the exact opposite of his life. Then he saw her. She was standing behind a wooden table stacked with jars of honey and hand-labeled soaps. Her dark brown hair pulled into a messy bun, a smear of pollen yellow wax on her cheek, and a worn apron tied at her waist. Her eyes were a soft hazel, and when she laughed at something an old woman said, the sound hit him like a punch to the chest. He didn't know what he was doing until he was already in front of her stand. "Try the wildflower one," she said, holding out a small spoon of honey. "It's from the hives on my dad's orchard." Xander blinked. Sure." She smiled, and he tasted the honey. It melted on his tongue, sweet, floral, warm. But he barely registered the flavor. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head. "You look like you just stared into the sun." "I think I did," he said before thinking. Her eyebrows lifted. "That line work often for you?" "Honestly, I've never used it before." She laughed, full and unbothered. "Well, points for originality." "I'm Xander," he said, offering his hand. "Vera," she replied, shaking it. Her palm was soft, but her grip was confident. "Do you sell here every week?" he asked casually, too casually. He was already stalling. "Every Saturday, rain or shine." She glanced at his shoes. "You don't look like the type who shops at farmers' markets." "I'm not," he admitted. "I got stranded here. Detour." "So fate," she said, teasing. "Maybe." A voice crackled in his ear again. His driver. His assistant. The world tugging him back. But he ignored it. "Do you want coffee?" he asked suddenly, nodding toward the stand across the lot. "I'll get us both one." Vera hesitated. "I can't leave the booth. But I wouldn't say no to an iced latte." That was the beginning. He came back 20 minutes later with 2 lattes, a croissant, and a ridiculous grin on his face. They talked while she sold jars to customers, passing comments between transactions. "So, what do you do, Xander?" she finally asked, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. He paused. "Finance." She narrowed her eyes. "Like, sell stocks." "Something like that." He didn't lie. But he didn't say billionaire venture capitalist with 2 private jets and a penthouse in Tribeca either. She didn't ask, and he didn't offer. For once, he liked not being seen as the billionaire. He stayed until she packed up, helping her fold the tent, carry boxes to her old pickup truck. She didn't ask, but he insisted. She didn't flirt, but she smiled at him like he was more than just a stranger in fancy shoes. When she climbed into her truck, he stood there awkwardly. "Thanks for the coffee," she said, rolling down the window. "Will I see you next Saturday?" he asked. "Depends," she said playfully. "Will you be stranded again?" He grinned. "I'll find a way." She drove off, and Xander stood there watching the dust trail behind her truck fade. Back in the car, his assistant snapped, "Where have you been?" "The board meeting." "Cancel it," Xander said, staring out the window. "What?" "I said cancel it. I've got plans next Saturday." The next Saturday, he arrived half an hour early. Vera was already setting up, hair braided over one shoulder, a crate of sunflowers by her feet. "You're early," she said, raising an eyebrow. "I didn't want to risk missing you." She handed him a jar of honey. "On the house." He handed her a box instead. She blinked. "What's this?" "Just open it." Inside was a hand-carved wooden sign with her logo, but polished, professional, with gold leaf detailing behind the lettering. It looked like something out of a boutique. Her mouth parted. Xander. I saw your old one was cracked. Thought I'd get you something better. She looked up at him, eyes wide. This must have cost a fortune. He shrugged. Let's call it an investment. In what? In you. Vera stared at him for a second too long. Then her voice dropped. Are you trying to charm me? I'm trying very hard not to. She smiled. You're weird. I get that a lot. Good, she said, placing the sign proudly on her table. Weird is better than fake. By the third Saturday, he was lifting crates without being asked. By the fourth, he knew her favorite jam, her least favorite customers, and that she sang in the car when nervous. They started grabbing dinner after she packed up, usually something casual: street tacos, burgers, once even pancakes at a 24-hour diner. She always insisted on paying, and he always refused. Not in a condescending way, just quietly. And slowly she let him in. She told him about her father's orchard, how she took over after he passed, how she fought to keep it running. She told him she didn't trust people who wore suits without scuff marks on their shoes. He told her about his mother, who raised him alone, about the scholarship that got him out of nothing, and the company he built from a two-man office. He left out the number in his bank account. He didn't want to scare her away. But one night, after dinner, he walked her to her truck, and she looked up at him with that same curious light in her eyes. You're not just some guy who got stranded, are you? She asked softly. He hesitated. No, he said. I'm not. Then who are you, Xander? He took a breath. I'm the guy who hasn't stopped thinking about you since the first spoonful of honey. You're not just some guy who got stranded, are you? Vera's voice hung between them, softer than the breeze stirring the edge of her jacket. The pickup's headlights cast a gentle glow on the gravel, catching the uncertainty in her eyes. Xander didn't look away. I'm the guy who hasn't stopped thinking about you since the first spoonful of honey. The line landed with more weight than he expected. Not because it was rehearsed, it wasn't, but because it was true. Vera didn't respond right away. Her fingers tightened slightly on the truck door, her gaze flicking to his and then away like she was trying to see through him. Okay, she said finally. But that still doesn't answer my question. He exhaled. No, I'm not just some guy. I work in finance, like I said. But I built my own firm. I own it. We invest in tech startups, green energy, infrastructure. We've done well. How well? She asked, without blinking. Well enough that people usually recognize my name before I give it. There it was. The shift. The line between the world she lived in and the one he came from. Vera leaned against the door. So, you're rich? Yes. Like rich? I have a penthouse in Tribeca, a vacation house in Santorini, and my own jet. So yes, Vera. I'm rich. She stared at him. The silence between them wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. You lied. I didn't, he said. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. No, it's not. I didn't want to lead with my bank account. I wanted you to see me first. I did see you, she said. And now I'm wondering if it was real. It was, he said fast, stepping closer. Every word. Every latte. Every night we talked until 2 in the morning. None of that was fake. She didn't flinch, but her voice lowered. You could have told me. You should have. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know how. Every time I wanted to, I thought, what if it changes everything? She looked at him for a long moment, then pushed off the truck and walked around to the back. He followed silently, unsure if she was done with him or giving him a chance. She pulled open the tailgate and started stacking crates. He reached for one. I've got it, she said, not looking at him. Vera, I said I've got it. He stepped back but didn't leave. The sound of the crates hitting the bed of the truck was the only thing between them for a while. Then finally she spoke. You know what scares me most? He waited. I liked you better when I thought you were just a little lost. I still am, he said quietly. That made her pause. She turned to face him, arms folded, hair catching on the collar of her jacket. So why are you here? Really? He looked at her, not blinking. Because this is the first thing that's felt real in a long time. I don't care if it's messy or complicated. I want to be here, with you. Her expression didn't soften, but her voice did. You can't just drop a billion-dollar truth bomb and expect everything to stay the same. I know, but I'm not walking away unless you tell me to. She studied him again like she was trying to see if he meant it, if there was anything left to believe. Then she closed the tailgate and wiped her hands on her jeans. You want to prove something, Xander? Yes. Then don't show up with a new sign or some fancy gift next week. Show up and help me bottle honey for 8 hours straight. He blinked. Seriously. Dead serious. Gloves, hairnet, and all. You still want to be here? Prove it. He nodded once. Tell me what time. 6 in the morning. He didn't flinch. I'll be there. She opened the driver's side door, paused, and looked back at him. And we're something you're not afraid to ruin. Then she climbed in and drove off. Xander stood in the darkened lot long after her taillights disappeared. He'd faced hostile takeovers and cutthroat negotiations, but nothing felt as high stakes as that conversation. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. 3 missed calls from his assistant, and a calendar reminder about a breakfast meeting in Paris. He hit decline, then typed out a single message to his pilot. Cancel the jet. He had honey to bottle. The warehouse sat behind Vera's orchard, tucked between rows of apple trees and a low hill. It was utilitarian weathered wood, a tin roof, and the faint hum of bees in the distance. The sun hadn't fully risen when Xander pulled up in a borrowed pickup, wearing jeans he hadn't worn in years and a plain black hoodie. Vera was already there, standing by the door with a clipboard and a thermal mug of coffee. Her hair was tied back in a braid, her posture brisk. You're late, she said. It's 6:02. Still late. He followed her inside. The space was filled with the scent of wax, citrus cleaner, and wildflowers. There were rows of shelves, plastic tubs, and a long table scattered with glass jars and sticky gloves. She tossed him an apron. Tie it tight. You'll be covered in honey by the end of the day. He caught it and got to work. The first hour was chaos. He broke a jar, dropped a lid into a vat, and accidentally glued a label to his own sleeve. Vera didn't laugh, but her eyes crinkled at the corners whenever he fumbled. By the 4th hour, his hands were sticky, his back ached, and he had a new respect for every dollar she'd ever earned. You're quiet, she said, brushing a smear of honey from her wrist. I'm trying not to screw up another batch. You're doing better than I expected. Is that a compliment? She shrugged. It's not a compliment. They worked in tandem after that. She moved with practiced efficiency and he followed her lead, falling into rhythm. There was something oddly soothing about it. No suits, no meetings, no boardrooms. Just jars, labels, and the sound of bees outside the open window. Around midday, they sat on the loading dock with sandwiches and lemonade. Xander looked out across the orchard, the rows of trees stretching toward the hills. You built all this? He asked. Vera nodded. My dad started it. I just kept it alive. He glanced at her. You're incredible, you know that? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I'm still mad at you. I know, but I believe you. He turned to face her fully. Then let me make it right. She took a sip of her lemonade. We'll see. He didn't push. He just sat there beside her, sticky hands, sunburnt neck, and all, feeling more grounded than he had in years. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't want to be anywhere else. Vera's truck rumbled up the gravel road, the late afternoon sun streaking golden light through the orchard trees as she parked beside the barn. Xander was already there, leaning against the open doorway, rolling up the sleeves of a faded navy shirt. He looked more at home in dirt-spattered jeans than he ever had in any of the suits she'd imagined him owning. She stepped out and pulled a folded list from her back pocket. We've got to finish prepping for the orchard tasting next weekend. It's our biggest local event of the year. Tell me what to do, he said, already moving toward the crates stacked along the wall. She watched him lift one and carry it to the open table before speaking again. You sure you're not going to vanish when your real life calls? She asked without looking at him. No, I'm not going anywhere. It wasn't the answer that made her pause, it was how quickly he said it. Vera busied herself with arranging honey jars by flavor, but her voice came quieter this time. My mom's coming to the tasting. She usually avoids public things, but she's making an exception this year. Why? Because she thinks you're coming. He set the crate down, brushing dust off his palms. She knows about me? Not everything, but enough. Xander didn't ask what enough meant. Instead, he walked over and picked up a jar, turning it over in his hands. What does she think of me? She asked if I was seeing someone. I said maybe. She said if he actually shows up, maybe she'll believe me. He nodded slowly. Then I guess I'll have to show up. Good, Vera said, moving to the next set of boxes. Because if you flake, she'll feed you to the chickens. I think I can take a few birds. She has 23. He laughed under his breath. Fair. I'm terrified. Vera glanced at him then, and something unspoken passed between them, something fragile, still new, but growing. She broke the moment by pulling a stack of hand-painted signs from a box. These need to go up along the road. Can you handle that while I finish prepping the tasting kits? Give me the hammer. He took the signs and disappeared down the trail as she returned to the table. It was easier focusing on the checklist, the jars, the labels. But her mind kept drifting back to the way he'd looked at her, like showing up wasn't a chore but a choice. Half an hour later, he returned, wiping his hands on a cloth. Signs are up. Your neighbors are going to be very informed. Good. Last year someone parked in the middle of my cucumber patch. As she sealed the final box of samples, he leaned against the table beside her. Why does this matter so much to you? He asked. She paused. Because this orchard is the last thing I have of my dad's. He used to say the land gives back what you put in. I think he meant more than just fruit. Xander's tone changed. You don't have to do it alone, you know. She straightened, caught off guard. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to be part of it. Not just the orchard. All of it. Vera blinked. You mean, like a business partner? No, he whispered. Like someone who wants to build a life with you. She stared at him, her throat tight. You've only been here a few weeks. And they've been the most honest weeks of my life. She turned away, pretending to check the list again. You're used to high rises and boardrooms, Xander. This isn't that. I'm sticky 90% of the time. I have dirt under my nails. I spend more on feed than I do on clothes. Good. I hate shallow. She glanced at him. You don't even know what that really means. I do now. Shallow is a dinner with 5 forks and no real conversation. It's a penthouse with no one waiting inside. You think I care about your nails? Vera, I care about how you look at a dying tree like you can still save it. She swallowed hard, her hands going still. I'm not asking you to decide anything right now, he said. But I want you to know that I'm not playing at this. She nodded but didn't speak. That night, he didn't linger. He said goodbye with a quiet touch to her shoulder and drove off down the orchard road, the taillights fading into the dusk. Vera stood on the porch long after, the wind tugging at the hem of her shirt. Inside, she found the small jar of honey he'd left behind on the work table. Her favorite blend, the one she always sold out of first. He'd written a note on the label. For when you forget how much you matter. The next morning, Vera woke to the sound of chickens clucking furiously and the low hum of a truck engine. She stepped outside in her boots and an old sweater only to freeze on the porch. Xander was in the chicken coop, wearing her dad's old straw hat, feeding them like he'd done it 100 times. What on earth are you doing? She called. He looked up, face flushed from the effort. Your mom said if I was going to survive the tasting event, I'd better make peace with the birds. Vera really laughed until she had to lean against the railing. Her mother emerged from the side garden holding a tray of herbs. He's not the worst man you've brought around, she said without looking at her. I've never brought anyone around, Vera replied. Exactly. Vera studied Xander again, now arguing with a hen over a piece of corn. Maybe he didn't belong in her world. But maybe that was exactly why he fit. She folded her arms, feeling something shift in her chest. This wasn't a man who visited to kill time. This was a man planting roots. The orchard tasting event drew more people than Vera had expected. Cars lined the long gravel drive, winding past the blooming rows of apple trees. Folding tables were set under canvas tents, shaded by the canopy of early autumn leaves, and every surface was dressed in local produce, fresh cider, and Vera's honey jars stacked in neat pyramids with hand-drawn signs beside them. Xander arrived early. He parked his car, a sleek, low-profile SUV that still somehow looked out of place beside the rusted farm trucks, and stepped out wearing dark jeans and a forest gray button-down with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. His watch was gone, his phone was off, and he carried 2 baskets, one filled with flowers, the other with something wrapped in linen. Vera was bent over a table arranging a tray of honeycomb samples beside wooden spoons. When she looked up and saw him, she didn't smile immediately, but her eyes softened. "You came," she said. Xander set the baskets down. "I told you I would." "You brought flowers?" "For your mom," he said. "And this," he lifted the linen bundle, "is for you." She gave him a look. "If that's another sign, I swear it's not," he said. "Open it." She unfolded the fabric carefully. Inside was a small wooden box, hand-carved, lacquered smooth. She lifted the lid. A row of honey dippers sat nestled inside. Each one was etched on the handle with single words: strength, wild, fire, root, sky. She ran her fingers over the carved letters. "I had them made," he said. "Each one's from a different type of wood. I thought maybe you could use them for limited batches. Or just keep them." She looked up slowly. "Why those words?" "They remind me of you." For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she closed the lid and set the box gently aside. "My mom's by the cider press," she said. "She'll want to know you're here." He hesitated. "You want me to go over?" "I think you should," she said. "She'll ask if we're dating." "What should I say?" Vera held his gaze. "Tell her we're figuring it out." He nodded once, then walked toward the press, where her mother stood with a tall cider glass in hand and an arched eyebrow ready. Vera turned back to the table, but her hands moved slower now. She felt tethered. Not weighed down, but steadied, like something inside her had stopped floating. An hour later, the orchard was alive with chatter, laughter, and music from a small folk trio near the barn. Children darted between trees, their fingers sticky from honey and apple slices, while couples wandered the rows of vendors with glasses of cider in hand. Vera was restocking a display when she heard her name. She turned. Xander was striding toward her, purposeful, eyes locked on hers. "Are you okay?" she asked, frowning slightly. He didn't answer. Instead, he stopped in front of her, reached into his back pocket, and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "I bought the orchard," he said. Her stomach dropped. "You what?" "From the bank," he said. "They've been holding the second mortgage since your dad passed. You haven't missed a payment, but the interest has been bleeding you." She stared at him. "How do you even know that?" I asked. Quietly. She stepped back. "Xander, I put it in your name," he said. "All of it. Full ownership. No more interest, no more bank. It's yours." Her voice rose. "You can't just do that." "I didn't do it to fix you," he said. "I did it because I love you." The words hit her like a wind gust, unexpected and full of force. "I love the way you fight for things most people would give up on. I love that you don't need anyone, but you still let me in. I love you, Vera. And this orchard? It's part of you. I'm not taking it, I'm giving it back." Her throat tightened. "You should have told me first. I was afraid you'd say no." "I would have," she said. "On principle." He smiled, but it was quiet. "Then tell me no now." "I'll reverse it if that's what you want." She looked at the paper in his hand. Her name was printed across the top in bold black ink. It was real. "I don't want your money," she said softly. "You don't have it," he replied. "You have your land. That's it." A long silence passed. Then she stepped forward and took the paper from his hand. "I'm keeping this," she said. "But not because I need it. Because I believe you." His brow lifted. "Believe me? When you say you love me?" Xander exhaled once deep and full. "Good," he said. "Because I've got one more thing to ask." She narrowed her eyes. "What?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. "Oh no," she breathed. It's not a ring. She blinked. Not yet, he added. But it's a key. To the house I bought up the road. Nothing huge. Just enough room for a garden and a porch swing. She opened the box. Inside was a simple brass key on a leather cord. I thought maybe we could build something, he said. Together. Vera looked down at the key, then back at him. Are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking you to let me stay, he said. Not just here. In your life. She didn't answer right away. She turned, looked out at the orchard, at the crowd, at the place she'd built. Then she looked back at him, this man who'd walked into her booth like he didn't belong and somehow ended up belonging more than anyone ever had. You'll have to help with the bees, she said. Done. And I'm not putting up with a closet full of suits. I'll donate them all. She held up the key. You're going to learn how to fix fences. Already watched 3 videos. Vera stepped forward, tucked the key into her apron pocket, and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was certain. Later that night, after the last guest had gone and the tables were cleared, they sat on the back porch of her house watching the stars rise over the orchard. Vera leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. You know, she said, when you walked into my booth, I thought you were lost. I was, Xander said. Until I found you. And under the soft sounds of crickets and wind, with the orchard swaying gently in the dark, they stayed like that, 2 people from different worlds, no longer separate. Together, fully, finally. 3 months passed, but everything had changed. The orchard had never looked more alive. Vera stood on the porch of the small white farmhouse Xander had bought up the road, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee, watching the sunrise move across the tops of the trees. The house was still modest, but the porch swing Xander had promised was there, creaking gently in the warm breeze. The garden beds were half planted, the fence freshly mended. Inside, there were boxes still to unpack, but they lived there now. Together. She heard the back door open behind her. You're up early, Xander said, walking barefoot onto the porch, his hair tousled, a pair of glasses perched on his nose. I couldn't sleep, Vera said. I keep thinking I forgot something for the harvest dinner. You didn't. I checked your list. You don't even know where I keep the list. It was under the mixing bowls, he said with a grin, leaning on the railing beside her. Vera rolled her eyes. You're impossible. And yet here I am, he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. Living proof that persistence and a well-timed detour can change your life. She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. Are you sure you're happy here? She asked after a beat. You haven't been in an office in months. He turned his head and kissed the side of hers. I'm happier than I've ever been, he said. I still run the firm. Just remotely. Turns out you can close $1 million deal while knee-deep in compost if you really want to. Vera laughed, the sound quiet but real. You actually did, didn't you? Twice. Insane. Only a little, he said. But I'd rather be insane here with you than sane anywhere else. She looked at him then. You mean that? I do. By noon, the orchard was bustling again, this time with friends, neighbors, and family gathered for the annual harvest dinner. Long wooden tables were set under strings of warm lights, and platters of roasted vegetables, cider braised chicken, and caramel apples filled every surface. Laughter echoed through the trees as the sun dipped low, casting everything in gold. Vera moved through the crowd in a soft linen dress, checking on food, refilling pitchers, and greeting guests. Xander stayed close, not hovering, but always within reach. He'd grown into the place like he'd always belonged, helping carry firewood without being asked, remembering people's names, learning how to tell when the apples were ready just by the weight of them in his hand. As the last streaks of light disappeared and the fire pits were lit, Vera found him sitting on the picnic blanket near the edge of the orchard, watching the stars blink to life one by one. She sat beside him, tucking her legs under herself. He handed her a mug of mulled cider without a word. They sat quietly for a moment. I got a call today, he said finally. She turned to him. From a developer in Chicago. They want to buy the firm. Full acquisition. Triple market value. Her heart thudded. What did you say? I said no. You, what? I told them I'm not interested. I don't want to go back to that life. He looked at her. I don't want to live out of hotels anymore. I don't want to chase numbers just to chase them. Are you sure? I'm sure I want this. You. This life. The orchard. Even the bees? She smiled. That's a pretty big commitment. I know, he said. Which is why I also called a jewelry designer. Her breath caught. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, not velvet, not flashy. Simple. Wooden. Handcrafted. He opened it. Inside was a ring, delicate and golden, with a honeycomb motif carved into the band and a small amber-colored stone nestled in the center. She didn't speak. I didn't want to propose with something that didn't mean anything, he said quietly. So I had this made. From the first honey we bottled together. Her hands trembled slightly as he took hers in his. I love you, Vera. Not the idea of you, not the version of you I imagined. I love the real you. The one who forgets to eat when she's working. The one who talks to trees like they're listening. The one who let me in even when I didn't deserve it. Marry me. Build this life with me. She didn't hesitate. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and she kissed him before he could even pull his hand away. Around them, the orchard was quiet, the stars burning bright. Later, when the last guest had gone and the fire had burned down to glowing embers, they stood in the middle of the orchard, hand in hand. I never thought I'd have this, she said. I never thought I'd want it, he replied. And now I can't imagine anything else. A year later, Vera walked barefoot through the orchard in a white dress sewn with wildflower embroidery. Her bouquet was made of herbs and honey-drenched blossoms, and her veil fluttered in the breeze like a whisper. They were married beneath the old apple tree at the top of the hill, the one that bloomed early every season. Vera's mother cried. The chickens squawked once during the vows. And when Xander kissed her, the entire orchard seemed to exhale. They danced in the barn under the string lights, surrounded by neighbors, friends, and the hum of joy that only comes from lives that have been finally claimed. Vera and Xander didn't move to the city. They didn't chase anything that didn't feel real. Instead, they built a new wing onto the farmhouse, turned the orchard into a destination for travelers, and added a small classroom for children to learn about bees and honey and soil. Years later, with silver beginning to thread through his hair and laugh lines deepening around her eyes, they still woke every morning to the sound of birds and the rustle of trees. And every Saturday, without fail, they visited the Montclair farmers' market hand in hand. Because sometimes the best things come from detours. And sometimes love arrives not with fanfare but with a spoonful of honey and a simple, unforgettable truth: they had found home. In each other. Forever.